now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Yoga 102. My name is Porsche Fischer, and I'm the Education and Registry Manager here at MiCHWA. I know many of you took the Yoga 101 webinar that we had offered previously. And so this is kind of building on that basis of knowledge that we gained the last time. But the great news is that you don't have to have any yoga experience whatsoever to participate in this webinar, to learn all of the benefits that we're going to give to you, and then also to be able to share them not only with your clients, but perhaps use them yourself or for your friends and family moving forward. Okay, so for many of us, especially as CHWs, we have to ask ourselves, how is it that we're working? Not just what we're doing and whether or not it's important, because I think we can all agree that it is. But what we need to ask ourselves is, how are we working from day to day, and how is that affecting our bodies and potentially even our attitudes? Too often, the things that we do every day, such as what the women are doing in this image, can have a negative effect on our well-being, both physically and emotionally. So we have to ask ourselves, as we look at this photo, what are these women doing? If you look at them, you think, wow, you've got two women, they're working together. They look very productive to me. But if you look a little deeper, you'll see that they're doing very common things that all of us do on a daily basis. The first thing that you'll probably notice that both of them are doing is sitting. And so recently, especially with public emergencies and pandemics and lockdowns, we've noticed people becoming more sedentary. So if you were sedentary before and had an 8-to-5 job or a 9-to-5 job, you were already sitting for a large portion of the day. And then when you compound that with the inability to go out and do the things that you normally do otherwise, you're spending even more time in a sedentary position, which is not good for the body and it's not good for the mind for a variety of reasons. And then if you compound that with the fact that both of these women are being productive, of course, but what are they doing as they're being productive? They're looking down, they're leaning forward. And these are things that are very common that we do to our bodies all day long, such as leaning forward to answer a telephone, leaning forward to eat, leaning forward to write on a tablet, to type on a computer, to check that email, and even more often now to use our smartphones. And so what we can do without really knowing it is start to have very bad habits where we're letting the shoulders hunch forward, the head to lean forward, and that starts to put weight on the neck, the shoulders, and the spine. And when you don't feel good, you can't share the best part of yourself. So what we want to do is think of ways that we can alleviate some of those bad habits and counteract them. But first, we need to understand them just a little bit more. So there's a common phenomenon now that's flying through Silicon Valley out in California. And this was told to me by a chiropractor that I knew from Michigan, who went out there to work at Google. And he said the number one problem, about 80% of the chiropractic clients that he would see at Google would come in with this ailment called tech neck, or they also called it text neck. And so this is from spending large amounts of time leaning forward to do a variety of things, which could include your job, of course, but also many of us as mothers were leaning forward to do things at home with our children, as parents in general, leaning forward to do cooking, cleaning, and then you compound that with what you're doing at work, and you can see how exponentially it's creating more pressure on the spine. So if you are looking down 60-degree angle on the back of the neck, it's like adding 60 pounds of weight around your neck. Whereas if you are holding your head upright, and the average head weighs about 10 to 12 pounds, depending on how smart you are, you have no pressure on the back of the neck, the spine, or the shoulders. So as you start to lean forward and increase the angle of the lean as you drop your head, you increase the amount of stress that goes directly into your neck, your spine, and then the weight-bearing joints that have to help compensate, which includes the shoulder joints specifically and the hip joints. When you're standing and you're doing this, it can also go into the knees and into the ankles. So what we want to try to do is alleviate or counteract some of the effects that are happening when we're leaning forward all the time, and kind of understand what's happening when we do that. So here we have the worker of the future. Now this is Emma, and this is a video that I wanted to show, and I don't know if it's going to load. We're going to try to see if we can get it to load. Hopefully, can you see that? So this is a quick 2-minute video about the worker of the future. So this is the consequences of what might happen to workers around the world if they don't counteract the effects of what all of this leaning forward and poor posture is doing to their bodies. So this is a group of scientists in England. It's a very quick 2-minute video just to kind of inspire a dialogue with us about what could potentially happen if we don't take this problem seriously.
Portia, did you intend for us to hear the sound, or did you want?
Yes, the sound's all the way up.
Okay, we can't hear anything. So maybe since it's in the chat, we can just encourage folks to watch it on their own.
Okay.
At later, if you mind.
I don't. Sorry about that, guys. I could hear it and I didn't realize that you couldn't. So Emma is the worker of the future, and this is what scientists have predicted might happen to an employee over the course of 20 years if they did not work to counteract some of the effects of the sedentary and office lifestyle. The things that they talked about in this video that I'm sorry you weren't able to hear are that as the posture continues to worsen, the muscles create muscle memory and will actually begin to shorten and stay in the wrong position, even though it might be painful. The muscles always choose the path of least resistance. They always want to do the same thing over and over again. So once you develop bad habits, the muscles really try to keep you in that space. But the great news is once you start to counteract those bad habits and start to develop better ones, then the muscles will change their memory from those bad habits to the new ones. So there's lots of hope, and it doesn't really take a whole lot of effort to begin and take that first step. Some of the consequences that you can suffer are putting multiple hours of added pressure onto the back of the neck, the spine, and the shoulders. And this is some research that was done that was just based on cell phones alone. So you can see that we're spending 2 to 4 hours a day on average just hunching over the telephone. This isn't counting talking on the phone at all. This is just reading articles, sending text, checking emails, visiting social media, 2 to 4 hours. And so over the course of a year, you can have added 700 to 1,400 extra hours of weight on the shoulders, the neck, and the spine. And now the children are being affected even more than the adults. They said especially high schoolers who are doing lots of technical work at school and then lots of social activities on their phone later, especially during the pandemic, this might be their only outlet. And so they could add upwards of 5,000 extra hours of added pressure to their spine, their neck, and their shoulders, which is even potentially more damaging because they're growing and their bones and their muscles haven't even had the opportunity to reach their full range of potential. So you might ask yourself, if I'm leaning forward just 60%, which I'll demonstrate, and it puts 60 pounds of pressure on my shoulders and my neck, what does that feel like? So here's the equivalent of that. You'll see in the photo, this is a parent and a child. So it would be the equivalent of having a 60-pound child or an 8-year-old hanging around your neck for that many hours per day. So instead of being on the back of you though, they would be on the front, just hanging there and applying that pressure. So that helps to give a visual to what it would feel like to have all that weight pulling you down. So the good news is there are lots of ways to counteract all of these bad habits. And the first one is to heal your spine by moving it in 6 different directions every day. This is one of the foundations of yoga. And I want to talk about those 6 different directions. So the first thing that we're doing when we are leaning forward is we're kind of hunching and we're falling into that position, and it's not very intentional. So these movements that we're doing, we want to make them more intentional and really focus on having a neutral spine, a long spine, an extended spine. The first direction of the spine is spinal flexion. So that is moving forward. So as we fold forward, think of flexion and folding. We're not hunching, we're not rounding. This is simply dropping the chin to the chest, or a forward fold by hinging at the waist. And I'll show you more of that later when we actually start to do the poses. The second direction of the spine is extension. So it's the opposite of flexion. Flexion is moving forward, folding in, and extension is lifting up and opening up. So think about opening the heart, opening the throat, leaning back. This is one of the most beneficial to counteract tech neck or text neck. And unfortunately, for people who've been doing this leaning for quite some time, it's also the most challenging and the most painful. So as we go through these exercises, please be mindful and really take care of yourself. And we'll talk about that more as well. The third and fourth directions are lateral flexion to the right and to the left. So this is known as those side bends. So bending first to the right is direction number 3. And then that lateral flexion to the left is direction number 4. The fifth and sixth directions are axial rotation of the spine, known as the spinal twist. And that's by turning to the right and turning to the left. So you add that spinal twist to the spine. In yoga, we say visualize your spine wringing out tension like you would wring dishwater out of an old dish rag. And we'll get into these a little bit more later so everyone can try these poses. So how else can we counter effect all of these bad habits that we're engaging in the office? And the first one is don't sit up straight. I know, what a surprise. Many of us have been told this our entire lives. Your mother, your father, your grandma may have told you this, and for the most part, she was right. That's how you want to stand when you're walking. That's how you want to carry yourself when you're mobile. But when you're sitting and you're forcing your spine into a rigid position by lengthening it and pulling the shoulders up, you're actually contracting the muscles in the neck, the shoulders, and the back, which can lead to even more stress and tension. So one of the first things I like to share is when you're sitting in the office, you don't need to have a straight spine in your chair because your spine isn't straight. The spine naturally has a curve to it. So a better position to help alleviate all that tension and contraction in the spine is to lean back slightly about 25 degrees and to also have some type of lumbar support in the low back to support the natural curve of the spine and to protect it from strain and injury. So specifically, before we start to do the yoga, I want to talk a little bit more about what yoga is and how it can help you. A lot of people ask me the question, what is yoga? Is it a religion? It absolutely is not. So yoga is non-denominational. It's a lifestyle. It is not a religion. And in fact, it is compatible with every other religion and even in the absence of religion. Yoga is a philosophy. It is a way of life. And the goal of yoga is to establish self-awareness of what we're doing, not just what we're doing, but why and how, and to help develop a non-reactive mind. So the non-reactive mind is the mind that when something happens right in front of us, to us, by us, because of us, we choose to respond appropriately instead of react or overreact out of habit. And sometimes the yogis teach us that the best response to a stimulus sometimes is no response at all. So do not worry about yoga poses being something that will align you with any specific ideology or religion. It does not. And really what yoga focuses on is connecting the body and the mind using the breath. So we just use the breath to help calm the body and calm the mind so that we can focus 100% aware of what we're doing without being distracted by constant little things surrounding us. Yoga's cleansing breath. So after the foundation of this non-denominational philosophy of non-reaction, we move up one level to the yoga breath. The very most basic yoga breath is the cleansing breath. We did this in the previous webinar, and that's where you breathe in through your nose, and out through your mouth. It is intended to calm the body, to calm the mind, and it also helps with overheating. So you're inhaling fresh, new oxygenated air, and you're exhaling all of that heat out of the body and the carbon dioxide. So this is what we're going to start with as we start to transition into the yoga portion of our webinar. So as I said at the beginning, if you didn't hear it or if you joined us after we started, you might want to take off any high-heeled shoes, restrictive clothing, tight belts. We're just going to do some gentle movements in our chairs. If at all possible, we'd like you to be in a safe space where you can sit and close your eyes. And we'd also like to ask you to uncross your legs and your ankles, to have your knees bent, your feet on the floor, or at least your toes on the floor. And your knees should be about 2 fist distance apart. So you want to take your fists and measure them between your knees. You want to have alignment of the body with the shoulders over the hips, the knees in line with the hips, and the spine is going to be neutral. So what we're going to do now is we're going to practice a few of these cleansing breaths. We're going to do 3 rounds. We're going to do each inhale and exhale for a count of 4. I'll demonstrate the first one so you can watch me. I'm going to close my eyes and exhale completely. On the next inhale, I'm going to breathe in through my nose. Inhale, 2, 3, and 4. Hold it slightly at the top, and then exhale through my mouth. 2, 3, and 4. So if you'd like to join me, find that comfortable, neutral, seated position. Hands can rest lightly on the thighs of the lap. I want you to close your eyes, exhale completely all the way. And then on the next inhale, slowly begin to breathe in through your nose to a count of inhale, 2, 3, and 4. Hold it slightly at the top. And then exhale through the mouth, 2, 3, and 4. Really nice. Continue. Inhale through the nose, 2, 3, and 4. Hold it slightly. Exhale, 2, 3, and 4. One more round. Finish the exhale. Inhale through the nose. Inhale, 2, 3, and 4. Hold slightly. Exhale, 2, 3, and 4. All right, you can open your eyes. As we move through the postures now, you can either continue to keep the eyes closed or open them as needed. And if you'd like to challenge yourself a little more, you can do your inhales and your exhales both with your mouth closed. So this is called nostril breathing, and it does help to cool the body and the mind, but just not as much as the cleansing breath. Also, you want to try to make your exhales last as long as your inhales. We have a tendency to breathe in slowly and then gasp all of the air out. So really try to find some balance between the inhales and exhales and keep them the same length. So moving on to our first yoga pose, we're going to prepare for this with a little warm up first. This is called the neck stretch. This is going to be especially helpful for those of us who sit for long periods of time, drive for long periods of time, and are always looking forward. So how often when you're driving do you actually have to turn and look behind you? Sometimes we rely on our mirrors. So these muscles can get contracted, shortened, and create muscle memory in a really tight, contracted position, which can be painful. What we'd like to do to warm up is to do a few gentle neck circles. So on the inhale, you're going to fill the lungs completely. And on the exhale, you're going to drop your chin to your chest slowly and gently. And you can keep your eyes closed if it serves you. And then on the inhale, you're just going to gently roll the right ear towards the right shoulder. And then exhale, gently drop the head back, lift the chin. If this hurts, bring the head up just a little bit. On the next inhale, slowly, gently roll the left ear to the left shoulder. And then exhale, slowly drop the chin towards the chest. We're going to do 2 more rounds. Inhale, bring that right ear towards the right shoulder. Take that whole count of 4. And then exhale, slowly roll the head back as you lift the chin and open the throat. Inhale to take the left ear towards the left shoulder. And then exhale, chin to chest, and 1 more round after that to the right. Inhale, right ear to right shoulder, nice and slow. Exhale, drop the head back, lift the chin. Inhale, take the left ear towards the left shoulder, keep your spine lengthened. And then exhale, drop the chin to the chest. Briefly, we'll lift the head, open the eyes if you need to. We're going to do 3 rounds just like this, only going in the opposite direction. On an exhale, drop the chin to the chest, slowly and gently. Inhale, take the left ear to the left shoulder. Exhale, drop the head back, lift the chin. And then inhale, take the right ear to the right shoulder. Exhale, drop the chin to the chest. We have 2 more rounds to go. Inhale, take the left ear towards the left shoulder. Exhale, drop the head back, lift the chin. Inhale, right ear towards the right shoulder. And then exhale all the way back through center, chin to chest, final round. Inhale to the left, take your time. Exhale, drop the head back and lift the chin. Inhale, take it to the right. Exhale, chin to chest. Inhale, lift the head back to that neutral position. And now we will prepare for the next stretch. So for the next stretch, you want to apply very gentle pressure and use the sensations that you felt in the body as you did your warm-up neck stretches to kind of gauge what type of pressure you'd like to add. So for the first one, we're just going to simply drop the right ear towards the right shoulder and hold here. For some of you, this will be more than enough. You have a very tight neck, especially for people who do bodybuilding or weightlifting. This has a tendency to be very sensitive or painful. If you feel like you need more of a stretch, lift your left hand. You're going to lift your right hand and you're going to place it on your left temple. And just, I like to let the weight of my hand just rest there. No yanking, no pulling. And you should feel a nice stretch all the way from the base of the skull, the bottom of the ear, through the shoulders, all the way down. Sometimes I can feel it into the top of the shoulder muscles, the deltoids. And we hold this for about 3 breaths. It's probably been about 3. On the inhale, slowly release the hand, rise up through center, see how you feel. Take a full round of breath and then we'll switch sides. Finish that exhale completely. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, just gently drop the left ear towards the left shoulder and you can hold here. This might be enough. If you need a little bit more of a stretch, it's the left arm that lifts this time and you bring it up to the top of the head by the right temple. And again, no yanking, no pulling. And at any point in time in this class or whatever you're doing yoga, if something is painful or doesn't feel right, you should definitely stop doing it. One more breath. Really nice. Inhale, we're going to come back up through center, neutral spine, take a full round of breath. So you can see those can be taught to others in your life with or without the hand yanking and pulling. I tend to, when I'm dealing with children, to not teach the hand movement because they'll start pulling on their heads almost as if to break their own neck. So it depends on if you have a mature clientele, they might appreciate it. But if they're very mature and a little bit older, that might be too sensitive. So just keep that in mind. So we've warmed up our necks. Moving on, we're going to go down into the shoulders a little more. This is called seated cat and cow. You can stay exactly as you are. I'm going to turn to the side to help demonstrate. And so for this position, we want to alternately flex and extend the spine while being seated. So the cat pose is the first image that you'll see where the spine is rounded, the arms are straight, and the palms are planted on the top of the thighs or the knees. So in this position on an exhale, we would drop the chin to the chest, straighten the arms, arch the back. The other one is cow pose. And for this one, you would sit up nice and tall, push the hands into the thighs, and then maybe even lift the chin and open the heart a little bit here, adding a slight back bend. So I'll demonstrate for you one time and then we'll do it together. So take an inhale here, nice neutral spine. And then on the exhale, straighten the arms, push the palms into the thighs, arch the back like a scared cat, and bring the chin to the chest as you pull the belly in towards the spine. That's your exhale. On the inhale, you're going to rise up to that neutral position. Keep the arms straight, but this time pull the shoulders back, lift the gaze, and lift the chin up. On the exhale, you're going to arch the back, bring the chin to the chest, pull the belly towards the spine. And then inhale to open the heart, push the chest forward, lift the gaze, maybe even look up towards the ceiling. On the exhale, arch, tuck, and round, chin to chest. Inhale all the way up, heart opens, lift the gaze. We're going to do 2 more rounds of cat and cow. So exhale into your cat pose, really arching those shoulders, pulling the shoulders apart if you can. And then inhale as you come up and lift your gaze, maybe pulling those shoulder blades together to open the chest. Final round, exhale, arch, tuck, and curl here. Pulling the shoulders open. And then inhale as you rise up, shoulder blades come together and you open the heart. Really nice. So about 5 rounds there of gentle flexion and extension of the spine. That seated cat and cow, and you can modify those to move as little or as much as you need to. Moving on, side bends. So side bends are great shoulder openers, but it's very important to warm everything up first, which we've done. Recommended exercises are those neck circles, the lateral neck stretch, and also those seated cat and cows. For this next pose, we're going to extend both arms out in front of us, interlace the fingers together, press the palms forward, and then you're going to lift your hands all the way up to the sky. So your palms are up. As you press your palms up, you want to get a nice reach through the arms, through the wrists, so counteracting all of that typing that you're doing. And then on the exhale, you're going to press both hands over to the right side. So the tendency in this pose is to lift the hips all the way up off the chair to go further. You really want to keep your hips grounded down into your chair, and you want to make sure that your feet are flat on the floor as you bend to the right for 3 breaths. That's already been about 3. So on the next inhale, slowly coming back up through center, pressing those palms up nice and high first, and then on the exhale, taking that side bend to the left. Again, both sits bones, so the bottom of your sits bones, your seat, the bottom of your hip stays squarely on the chair. The feet are flat on the floor, and you're just bending to the side, pressing the palms of the hands over towards the left side. Finish up that exhale completely. And then inhale, come all the way back up through center, pressing the palms high. And then exhale, slowly release and bring the hands all the way down to the lap. So you can see here how that can be very intense depending on how far you go in either direction. Take her with you. And so you might want to be careful with that one. Some modifications include keeping the hands about 2 fist distance apart as you have the person raise their arms up and overhead, so they don't have to interlace the fingers together. To make it a little bit more challenging, they can always grab opposite elbows to take the stretch deeper. And again, keep the hands apart to make it less challenging. Moving on. Warrior 1 is very intense as a standing pose. It's a little bit more accessible as a seated posture, but you still want to be able to have yourself or whoever you're teaching these postures to warmed up first, which we've already done with those seated side bends. For Warrior 1, depending on where you're sitting, you'll either need to bring the arms out to the side for this or out in front of you, but just know that you might need to modify either way. Traditionally, it starts both arms extending down towards the ground. The palms will face in on either side of the legs and they will just extend. So you want to make your arms feel very, very long. And then if you have the space on the inhale, you'll reach the arms out to either side, up and overhead, and then eventually you're going to bring these palms together above you. If you don't have the space to either side, you'll lift the arms straight out in front of you, palms together, reaching all the way up. And then the modifications for this, again, instead of having the palms come close together, you can have them be about 2 fist distance or shoulder distance apart as you reach up. If you want to make it more challenging, you can always interlace the fingers together and then just have the index fingers pointing up. This is called warrior hands. So palms flat together, or you have modifications, hands apart, or interlacing the fingers together. Now, once you have both arms reaching up towards the sky, you want to ground down through your hips and then maybe even make it more challenging by lifting your gaze. This posture seems easy, but we usually hold these poses a little bit longer just to build stamina and strength and to kind of counteract those bad habits from hunching forward or inactivity. So we're going to be here for about 10 breaths. It's already been about 5. If you need to take a break, you can always release, bring your hands down for a breath or 2, and then come back up. We've got about 3 more breaths. As you build up endurance in these postures, you can do more sets for longer. About 2 more breaths. Eyes can be opened or closed, but make sure you're breathing in through the nose and either out through the mouth or out through the nose. 1 more breath. On the exhale, slowly release the hands and the arms back down. and then rest the hands lightly on the lap. So after you come out of a pose, you don't want to rush right into the next one. You kind of want to experience the sensations when you come out of the posture, because the body will tell you how what you're doing is working for you. And so those areas of sensitivity, you feel warmness and tingling, that's where it's working, that's where the blood flow is going. And sometimes if you feel a little uncomfortable, the yogis have a saying, the postures we like the least are usually the ones we need the most. Moving on. So here we have a spinal twist. The twist can be some of the most intense postures in yoga. So we really want to make sure that the body is completely warmed up. We would add these later in the class just to make sure that we could prevent injuries by not forcing something on the body that it isn't ready for. Like most of the other yoga poses, there are a variety of levels of this spinal twist. When you're dealing with very small children or mature audiences, you may want to start with the most simple, which I'll teach you now. So the very most simple twist is to inhale in a neutral position and then exhale, just turn the chin to the right as far as is comfortable. So all you're doing is looking to the right. I would hesitate to say, look all the way behind you, twist all the way around. So you just want to stop at that point of first resistance and then breathe into the sensations for about 3 breaths. That's already been at least 2, 1 more full round of breath here. On the next inhale, coming back through that neutral position, and then exhale, just turning the head to the left and stopping at that first point of resistance. And then 3 breaths here. So what we often do is we will come back to these postures doing several rounds. And the great thing is you can typically twist a little bit further each time. Inhale, come back through center. Now, if you wanted to take this posture a little bit more deeply, depending on what kind of chair you're sitting in, on the exhale, as you turn your chin over your right shoulder, you can plant your hand on your right armrest or even on the back of the chair. You can bring your left hand to your right knee or to the armrest to your right and look behind you. So we're going to be here for 3 breaths. You could just simply be looking over the right shoulder. You could be holding onto the armrest, or you could be holding onto the back of the chair. It doesn't really matter. We've got 1 more round of breath. On the next inhale, coming back through center. And again, yogi's choice, looking over the shoulder. Maybe this time as you turn to the left, you can reach for the armrest, reach for the back of the chair, or reach for the armrest with the opposite hand. We're going to be here for about 3 breaths. 1 more breath. On the next inhale, coming back through center. Just notice those sensations in the body. We're going to do 1 more round. So again, yogi's choice. You can decide how far you go, but don't fall into the temptation to move the knees, the hips, the feet, to twist the hips or slide in the chair. Try to keep the bottom half of the body neutral, and you just want to twist from the waist and above. Take an inhale here, and on the exhale, last time on the right, twisting. As you turn your head to the right, you might want to reach for that right armrest. And then just see if you can look a little bit further than you did before. I know every time I do this, I can always look a little bit further each time I come back into the pose. On the next inhale, coming back through center. Now we'll go for the final round on the left. Take an inhale in a neutral position, and then exhale, just gently start to look over the left shoulder. And these are just quick seated exercises you can do. 1 more breath, perhaps in between meetings, if you have Zoom meetings stacked up, or if you have a quick little break, you can literally just do 60 minutes of yoga. 1 more breath. And you'd be amazed at how much better you feel after you get that blood flowing. Inhale back through center. Just notice how you feel. We have a saying in yoga, more isn't always better. Sometimes more is too much. So we always recommend you start with the most gentle variation of the pose and then work your way up from there instead of doing it backwards. Moving on. Okay, this is the most challenging posture of the day. It's eagle arms. So for eagle arms, you definitely want to be warmed up. It's a very intense stretch for the back of the shoulders, which is really one of those key areas that gets a lot of pressure and tension when you're leaning and hunching forward for extended periods of time. For eagle pose, you want to extend both arms out in front of you. The palms can face up or down, and you're simply going to cross the right arm, right elbow under the left elbow. Now, as you bring the hands closer together, you can bring the back of the palms to touch. Some people can do both, so their palms can touch together completely. You can see in the image, she has the palms facing in towards each other. For me, that's pretty uncomfortable, so you can just do the back of the hands facing in. And then once you get the elbows bent, you want to start to lift your elbows up so that they're not dropping down your lap, so they're out in front of you. And you should be able to feel a nice stretch all the way through the shoulders to the back. So going through the latissimus dorsi muscles that look like fans at the bottom of the back where they meet the trap muscles at the top. It forms an X, and right in the center there, that's that area that tends to get a lot of stress and tension, and it's very hard to get it out. This is one of the few poses I found. That's got to be 3 breaths. So we're going to come out of this by unwinding, extending arms out. I like to wiggle the fingers, shake the arms out a little bit. And then to switch sides, it's the left elbow that goes under the right. Once you get that cross, just bend the elbows, try to get the hands reaching up. And then you can also bring the palms together or bring the hands together. A lot of postures I can do on one side, but not the other. So just be mindful of that. You can't always get the same thing on both sides. Once you get in this pose, you just want to start to lift the elbows. When my elbows are very low to my body, I don't feel much, but as I lift them up and away, I can really feel that stretch all the way through the back of my shoulders into my back. One more breath. Really nice. To come out of it, you just unwind, and then I like to shake it out, get the blood flowing, wiggle the fingers and the toes. Really nice. Okay, we've made it to the grand finale. I know you're very excited to see the last pose. So forward fold. Again, many different options. And the great thing about yoga is when you take a yoga class, if there are 30 people in the class, there'll be 30 different variations of every pose. So for the first variation of this, you're just going to bring the hands to the thighs, make sure the feet are flat on the floor, knees are 2 fist distance apart, and you're just going to let your head and your shoulders hang heavy. So instead of leaning forward and putting pressure on the neck, you're just dropping the head, softening the shoulders, and letting the weight of the head create traction on the spine. So you're not leaning, you're relaxing. The second variation is you can clasp opposite elbows, either put them on the desk in front of you, or you can bring them down, hinging at the hips, to your lap. So as you come down, you want to soften the head, neck, and shoulders, drop the chin to the chest, and you're supported now not by your hands, but by your elbows. The final variation is the variation that's in the image that you see on your screen. So you can see she's gone all the way. So she's hinging at the hips, she's resting her chest against her thighs, and then letting her arms dangle free and release the shoulders as well. This could be an option for you, even if you can't go all the way down. If you have any type of pillow or support, you can rest that lightly on your lap and then lay your chest across the pillow or the support, or a phone book. Do they even make those anymore? And then lay resting on that. And so as we come into our final forward fold, we're going to hold this one for just about 1 minute. So close your eyes if you can, and then choose your variation. So I'll review once again. The first one is just gently dropping the chin to the chest, softening the shoulders. The second is clasping opposite elbows and then supporting yourself on your desk or your lap as you come forward. And then the third and final one is the one where you can see in the image, she's coming all the way down. But if I do that, you will no longer see me. It'll feel like you're in this webinar alone. So I'm just going to do the very first version. So let your head hang heavy, chin to chest, soften the shoulders, close the eyes. Notice if you're clenching your jaw. So gently pull the teeth apart, pull the tongue away from the roof of the mouth. Soften the face muscles, the jaw, the cheeks. Soften your lips, the space between your eyebrows. Soften the eyelids. Notice if you're propping yourself up or holding yourself up. Last 10 seconds, can you drop down just a little bit more? Breathing in and out through the nose, last 2 breaths. On the next inhale, slowly rising all the way back up to your seated position. And just let that sensation wash over you. A little lighter, a little looser, a little calmer, a little more aware of the sensations in the body. The body has a miraculous way of telling us how what we're doing when we're not doing yoga is working for us. When we come to do yoga and we notice things here and there, it's kind of the body's way of telling us what we're doing off of our yoga mats is not working for us. So I want to thank everyone for coming. You'll be receiving a survey from us to get your CEU for attendance. You'll need to complete that and send it back. Usually takes about 3 or 4 days for us to get through all of those. If you weren't here at the beginning, my name is Porsche Fischer. I'm the Education and Registry Manager at MiCHWA, the Michigan Community Health Worker Alliance. And if you have any questions, I've included my phone number, my email. You can also follow us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. This particular video will be uploaded on YouTube, so you can watch it later, share it with a friend. You can also hit that subscribe button, and you'll be notified of any of our future recorded webinars. You do not have to attend the live webinar to get the credits. You just have to complete watching the webinar and then take the survey. So if you have any questions, that's all of my info. We also have a beautiful new website if you have not yet seen it. It is at MiCHWA.org. We have a registry that you can now add your profile, photos, and your interests, your special interests, look for jobs, network with other people, lots of fun stuff on there. One last thing before we open it up for questions, save the date. One of our next amazing webinars is going to be with 3 wonderful men I've had the privilege of meeting and getting to know. They're going to be doing a webinar called Impact and Perspectives from Male CHWs. And that's going to be a panel discussion. Bring your questions for the end so you can talk to these guys about their experiences. That's going to be on December 3rd at 11 a.m. That's a Friday. You will also earn 1 CEU. And I believe one of the panelists is the only African-American male lactation expert, certified lactation expert in the country, lives here in Michigan, and he will be on that panel. So now we're going to open it up for questions if anyone has any.
Just want to thank you, Porsche. Before we go to questions, I'm actually going to stop the recording. So this is the entirety of the presentation that will be posted on the web, YouTube, and inside of our new registry. If you are watching this recording, please complete the survey link at the end.